I'm joined by Andy Keller, CEO of ChicoBag and To-Go Ware. Thank you so much for joining me, Andy.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Awesome. And the way I like to start these conversations is really just to get an idea of what briefly is the problem that ChicoBag and that you're solving.
I mean, the biggest problem that we're trying to solve is, our mission is to help humanity bag the single-use habit, and we're talking about single-use plastics.
Mm-hmm.
The issue with plastic is that once it's created, there is no natural system or that works with plastic. It actually gets into the environment and it doesn't biodegrade. It turns into essentially pollution that is found all over the globe. So our use of plastic, the best way to solve this issue is to reduce our use of plastic. And single-use plastic is a low-hanging fruit. When we use plastic for just moments and throw it away and it lasts for eons in the environment, that's the issue we're trying to solve by making products that are reusable, that are that compete with that convenience of single use. So everything we make is reusable and ideally really easy to use, something that you can adopt into your lifestyle very easily.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And there's, I read on your website, I absolutely love this little quote: when waste does not become food for another system, natural or otherwise, it becomes pollution. And I think that's a really elegant and simple way of describing exactly kind of the challenges that we're facing as a species in terms of what we've created. Is it doesn't really break down or go away. Like the forest sort of works on its own, but plastic doesn't really go anywhere. It just sort of, the best we can get is just it breaking up into tiny little pieces and then floating around.
It's really a horrible outcome because what happens is it's impossible to clean up at that point.
Yeah.
When it becomes little pieces of plastic. And what they're finding is that the plastic, once it deteriorates and becomes little specks of plastic, it can travel, either by wind current or water current all over the globe. And they're finding plastic at the North Pole and the South Pole, places that should be pristine wilderness areas, all across the ocean, concentrated in what they call the gyres, which essentially are where two currents come together, creates a bit of a dead zone. And this is where plastic accumulates. And so when you see plastic, for example, on the street, it rains, it goes, down into the storm drain, into the creek. It all runs downhill. It ends up in the ocean, and the final resting place for plastic is in these gyres. There's 5 of them across the globe, main accumulation zones. And I've had the privilege of going out and seeing firsthand. I've been to 2 of these different gyres to see the plastic out in the ocean.
So that's the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is one of them.
Yes, and there's 4 others, main ones. Really, it's those are accumulation zone. There's plastic all over the globe.
Yeah.
And what's happening is that it's entering our food chain, and it really is pollution. And it's at a almost at a microscopic level where and what happens with plastic in the ocean is that like attracts like. So there's other petrochemicals and things that have been banned for years, like DDT, that are still persisting in our environment. And the plastic will act like a little sponge and will absorb these other petrochemicals. So these little pieces of plastic become little toxic pills, essentially. They can become 1 million times more toxic than the ambient seawater that they're in. So when something ingests that, they're taking in those chemicals, and then when something bigger eats that little thing, it bioaccumulates up the food chain. So, I saw a video the other day where a guy was eating sushi and he had a plastic cup, and then that shows the life of the plastic cup after he's done going out to the ocean and then bioaccumulating back into the fish, and then he's eating sushi again and eating the the result of his lifestyle. So
yeah, it's a shame. And I think there's a lot of those kind of similar memes about just the circularity in a bad way of plastic and how we sort of use it and then just comes back in forms that we don't want. going to ChicoBag,
Yep.
how do you solve this problem? I mean, what's your strategy, and what is it that you're doing to to reduce the amount of plastic that we're seeing in our beautiful oceans?
The main thing is just helping people become aware that plastic once created never goes away.
Yeah.
And then to give them a solution. Most people who know this, they know that, oh, I should be using less plastic, but they forget their reusable bags at home or in the car, for example. Right. So the idea that I had when I started my company was, well, what if I had a bag that I couldn't forget at home or in the car, one that I had in my pocket or clipped onto my keys. And so what I came up with is a reusable bag, that fits in a pouch. And so it's got tiny. It's got a little carabiner on here, so you can clip it on your belt loop or hook it on your keys, or it's flat enough I can keep it in my back pocket like a wallet. It actually kind of balances out my my back, so I don't have back issues.
Yeah.
Because I got my wallet in my other pocket. So, but anyways, the idea of this is to make it super convenient so you don't have to remember. And a lot of times I'll end up in the store and I'm like, God, I forgot my bag. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, it's in my pocket. So that's the solution, is making it easy for people to remember. You mentioned in the beginning, like ChicoBag and To-Go Ware. So To-Go Ware is basically the utensil equivalent. So it's a bamboo fork, knife, and spoon,
also in
and
a pouch.
chopsticks, all in a pouch that's got a carabiner too. So it's single use. You go out to lunch. How many times have you gotten a single use fork, or God forbid, a single use knife, fork, and spoon wrapped in plastic with a napkin? And you're like, I got a hamburger and French fries. Why are you giving this to me?
Exactly.
So you could say no to that, if you had a utensil set like this. So,
and the carabiner makes it impossible to forget. No excuses.
Yeah. So you clip it on something that you're like, if you carry a bag or a purse with you, you can clip it on, or you keep it in your car, and have it in a place where you could see it. So all the solutions that we've come up with, help people say no to single-use plastic. Like, for example, here's a sandwich bag. You could keep your snacks in it. You put a full sandwich in here, or if you have like a small snack, you can fold it over and put it in your lunch, put it in your bag for your lunch.
Yeah.
So basically we've come out with solutions to help people kick their shopping bag habit, utensil habit, sandwich baggie habit, Ziploc bag habit. Every one of these single-use items that people are bombarded with in their life, we've tried to come up with a solution that's reusable, that can help people use less of that.
Yeah, that's really cool. And why focus specifically on? So I mean, you've kind of broadened out, right? At first, you were starting just with the plastic bag, which is where the name ChicoBag comes from. So, out of curiosity, why start specifically with the plastic bag and not? I mean, but straws were so. Everyone hates straws as well. So, I'm just wondering, where does the focus on the plastic bag specifically start with?
I was at the landfill, and in my town, it's a small town, about 100,000 people. And what I saw when I was at the landfill were plastic bags everywhere, blowing around. And visually, it was just, I was overwhelmed by plastic bags. And that day it was windy, and the plastic bags were blowing out of the landfill into the adjacent ranch land where cows were pasturing.
Oh, wow.
And it occurred to me at that moment that, all these plastic bags, like the people that threw them away didn't litter. They put them in their trash can. They were responsible. Yet, despite that, these plastic bags are still getting out in the environment.
Yeah.
And I realized that, I've been told, I was been told my whole life, don't litter, give a hoot, don't pollute, recycle. And, essentially there's a fundamental issue with our society that's bigger than just consumers doing the right thing. It's businesses creating these types of products that and then blaming the consumer for the problems that they create.
Mm.
So what I came to realize is that plastic bags can become windblown litter despite proper disposal.
Yeah.
And that really, I was a plastic bag user up until that point. The average American uses about 500 plastic bags per year.
Wow.
And we have a character called the Bagmonster that represents what this is. And I dress up like the Bagmonster to show people what their annual consumption looks like. And most people never really think about how many plastic bags they use in a year.
So what is the Bagmonster?
The Bagmonster is what the average American uses in plastic bags in 1 year, all like covered. It's basically a costume that's covered in plastic bags. So if you tied every plastic bag on you that you used in 1 year,
yeah,
you'd look like a bag monster at the end of the year.
Wow.
And so most people don't think about it. They never think about how much plastic they use. And so seeing the bag monster brings them face to face with their consumption. And typically there's a realization when someone sees that, goes, I probably use more bags than I need. And then there's, that's 9 out of 10 people, have that conclusion when they see it. Some people get defensive. They're like, oh, well, I use my plastic bags, to clean up my dog poo or, my cat litter.
Yeah.
And that's great. Using a plastic bag twice, certainly is part of the solution. That's the reuse. So,
Mm-hmm.
And some people recycle their bags, and it's hard to do in a lot of places.
Yep.
In the United States, you have to bring them to your grocery store to get them recycled in most communities. If you put them in your curbside bin, they don't get recycled.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a bit of, misinformation around recycling, which is part of this issue. I kind of getting away from your original question.
No, that's right. Yeah, I mean, one thing that you said, which is really interesting, is that that making people aware. It's I think what you said, which I thought is interesting, is that people use more plastic bags than they need. I also think it also makes people aware that they use a lot more than they think, because if you're really able to dress yourself fully in, I mean, what is it, 500 plastic bags, and that will cover your entire body. I mean, like you said, it's a very visual representation, and I would have never thought that that's how many plastic, like, it's just such an easy way to visualize that. And it's really powerful, because even the number 500 plastic bags, I mean, it sounds like a lot, but it doesn't really mean much to me in terms of what does that look like, or what, so that's, I mean, dressing yourself is kind of an extreme way. And I think it's a very, it's a clever way and a unique way of doing it. And it's like what you said, you're bringing awareness and attention first to the issue of disposable plastic, which is really awesome. So the other point is, it's like you said, I mean, I think reusing is important. But then again, there's the 3 R's, which is reduce, reuse, recycle. And as I've seen and heard more than once, they're in order. It's not do them kind of whichever one you prefer. It's first reduce, then reuse, and then finally, if you have to, recycle.
Yes.
And I guess that's exactly what you're actually covering off 2 of those, because first you're reducing the number of bags that people are using in the first place. And then second of all, you're actually having a reusable alternative.
Yes. And the third R is recycle. We have a line of products that we make out of recycled PET, which is bottles, plastic bottles.
Okay.
So we can't make
repeat.
Yes.
Yeah, love that.
So we can't make our fabric out of old plastic bags, but we can make it out of old plastic bottles. So that's the closing the loop part of it. So the kind of the dirty secret with plastics is that they all have this little recycle symbol on it, and you put it in your blue bin, and everyone feels good. Oh, I recycle. I fill up my blue bin every week. I'm doing my part. But the dirty secret about that is very few plastics actually have a market. And in order for things to get recycled, there has to be a market for the recycled content.
Yeah.
Consumers can play a role in this by buying items made of recycled content. But part of the problem with recycled content right now is that recycled content, at least in my world, is 40% more expensive than virgin content, which doesn't make any sense to me. Like, if you're going to extract oil out of the ground, refine it, break it into its parts, create virgin plastic out of it, that should be more expensive than taking existing plastic and grinding it up and making something new out of it. But it's not. And part of that is because over years of lobbying, essentially industry, and the government has externalized costs. And what I mean by that is that the cost of virgin plastic, all those costs are not embedded in the price you pay for that. It's being paid for by taxpayers or by communities or even future generations when you talk about environmental degradation. And that is something that's changing. Business has traditionally, the status quo of business has been to maximize shareholder profit. That's the sole purpose of business and the only responsibility of business. If you believe in Milton Friedman, the famous economist, and this is like the free market will solve all social woes. It's this kind of thinking, but that's changing. That system, essentially, when you maximize shareholder profit, you are not prioritizing employees or vendors or the planet or people who aren't at the negotiation table. You're putting them second to the shareholder. And there's a new movement right now called benefit corporation or B corporations. These are value, purpose-driven businesses where they're putting something else besides the shareholder at the same level or even at a higher level.
And that's ChicoBag is a B Corp, right?
Yeah. So that's putting a social benefit. And the premise is that business should provide a social benefit outside of just making profit for the shareholders.
So what does it take to actually be a B Corp?
Essentially, you need to embed into your corporate charter a social benefit. So for ChicoBag, we have a mission of helping humanity bag the single-use habit. We're trying to help humanity use less single-use plastic. And we go beyond that. We want to leave a positive impact on the world.
Right.
So we have zero waste goals. We are offsetting our carbon footprint, reducing as much as we can. And we're doing all of this, and not all of it makes sense from a traditional shareholder profit model, but this is the purpose of the business. So as we pursue that purpose, we are achieving our mission. And at the same time making a profit. So we're able to continue. The profit allows us to continue operating as this purpose-driven business.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point, is this profit element, because and from a lot of the other people I've spoken to who have companies, I think it is very important that you are a profitable business. I mean, you're not a charity, and that's the whole point, is that you're basically, by being profitable, you're able to keep going and pursue your mission. And as the business grows, you're able to make a bigger and bigger impact. So I think profit is really crucial.
Profit is really an indicator to let you know that people are appreciating the business and that you're doing something that provides value.
Yeah.
And ultimately, consumers or customers have the power. So every dollar you spend is a vote for what you want in the world. So when you spend your dollars, what companies are you going to give your dollars to? Who are you voting for?
Yeah.
And so, raising that awareness is, and there's a whole movement about greater transparency so that you know exactly what you are voting for. There's a lot of companies where they don't understand their supply chain. So when you buy a chocolate bar from a certain company, are you supporting slave labor, picking cocoa beans,
Yeah.
or not, so, when you vote with your dollar that way, you can vote and pay for a chocolate bar that supports, fair labor standards and make sure, and to a company that understands their supply chain. There's all kinds of examples of this where you can, use your dollars as a lever to create the change that you want to see in the world.
Yeah, it's cool because sorry, just on that point, because I think it's really interesting. It's you're both voting for the thing you like, and because you end up buying, this fair trade chocolate bar, you're also not buying the other chocolate bar. So you're kind of giving two signals simultaneously, meaning I'm not going to support these chocolate bars and I am supporting this one.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's a great point. Is it has a double impact.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the company that you're rewarding with your dollar is able to, continue and expand and grow, and the other company theoretically should be shrinking, or like going, wait a minute, what's happening here? Maybe, people care about our supply chain. Let's do something about it. And then they can adjust the way they do business to earn those customers back.
One thing I noticed just moving away from this and going back to the B Corp, that I was really, really impressed by your awards that you've gotten. Let's see, voted best for the world for environmental impact 5 years running, and then best overall for 2018. Those awards sound incredibly impressive. What are they exactly? And
so there's in the B Corporation universe, there's I haven't checked recently, but there's over 3,000 B corporations in the world, and growing. And of those B corporations, everyone goes through this assessment. Everyone gets a score based on the assessment that they go through.
Right.
So ChicoBag has won an award because of our environmental practices, what we do as a company in comparison to all these other companies. So we've been ranked in the top, I forget what it is, 20% of B corporations, or maybe it's 10%, I forget.
That's so cool.
In regard to our score and the practices that we have here.
That's amazing. And 5 years in a row, I mean, you're really committed and sticking to it.
Yeah, well, once you start winning awards, you're like, I want to,
can't not win an award next year. We've got to
up our game.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is motivating. Like, we're all like, okay, what can we do now? And so this year we've decided to join the, become climate neutral certified.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then we also became a 1% for the planet member, which essentially we're committing 1% of our sales, top line sales, to the planet.
This is revenue, meaning not profit.
Yes, revenue.
So any sale that you make, first you set aside 1% of that.
Exactly.
Then you keep the 99% and do whatever you need to do with it.
Yeah. So we've committed, for our recycled content product, 1% of the sales of those products. Because we want to motivate people to buy those products.
Yeah, that makes sense. Double motivation.
And we've made a commitment to shift our product line from virgin polyester to recycled content. And we offer recycled content currently, but as I mentioned before, there's some structural issues in our economy that essentially make those products more expensive. It's more expensive to create recycled content products currently. We want that to change. We think that can happen through policy. Right now, because there's subsidies for oil extraction and tax benefits, and there's all kinds of kind of status quo things in place to make virgin plastic cheaper than recycled content. We need to change that as a society. And, as a consumer, we talked about changing the world, but there's also the idea as a citizen, you can also change the world. So as a consumer, you vote with your dollars. As a citizen, you speak up and you talk to your politicians and you let them know that what's important to you, and go to your capital or to your local city council meeting and ask for change. And it can happen at a city level, a county level, a state level, or even at a federal level. or you could go to the United Nations, as well. There's activists, all over the world, and engaging at all those different levels to create the change we want to see. And one of those changes is essentially to put in tax benefits or to remove tax benefits to level the playing field so that recycled content is ultimately cheaper than virgin plastic. That's the way it should be.
Yeah.
Then there's an economic incentive to use recycled plastic. The economic incentive will close the loop automatically. If we can level the playing field, the whole game changes.
Mm-hmm.
And then we will live in a circular plastic economy as a result.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. I recently learned that aluminum is cheaper. Recycled aluminum is cheaper than virgin aluminum. So there you go. I mean, the motivation instantly to use virgin aluminum is practically null. If you can get recycled aluminum, why would you go for a more expensive option? So it's the same with plastic. Once the recycled stuff becomes cheaper and easier to obtain than the non-recycled stuff, it's like, well, it just doesn't make any sense to go for the virgin and create new plastic.
Yeah, and that's I mean, it's setting up the game, the playing field, so that the game can be essentially played in a way that's better for the planet.
Exactly. Yeah, you've you mentioned a couple things already. That one question I love to ask towards the end, as I'm just conscious of time here, is what do you personally do on the day-to-day level, just in your own life and at work? And you mentioned, voting with your dollar, voting as a citizen. I guess kind of on a more day-to-day level, what do you do to be environmentally friendly?
Oh gosh.
I guess one thing that I'm really hoping that you talk about is your office pets.
Oh yes. So we've tried to do composting. So we have a zero waste initiative, and composting, I've failed at it miserably. I just can't get stuff to compost right. And I've come to the conclusion that chickens actually are nature's composters. You give them, basically, they'll eat anything and they'll turn it into compost like within 30 minutes. It's amazing. So yeah, we've used chickens as a way to process our food waste.
So where do they live?
We had them at the office, in front of our office, in a coop, and each employee, we'd put all our compost in a 5-gallon bucket and we'd bring it out to the chickens, on a weekly basis or daily basis whenever we thought about it. Unfortunately, recently we moved into a different building that's close to the airport, and FAA regulations require that we don't have chickens for some reason, because they attract birds of prey, and jet engines attract birds of prey too.
Never even considered that.
Yeah, so unfortunately, I have chickens at home now instead of at the office. So chickens are still a big part of the compost story here, but unfortunately we're a little bit handicapped in our ability to compost.
So does that mean that you're driving compost home from work?
I have been known to do that. Yes.
I would definitely do that.
But we do have a compost pile that's it's not working very well, but it's there. But I did notice the grass that's growing around the compost pile is like 3 or 4 shades greener than the rest of the grass in the area. So we are creating good soil here as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And going with the chickens, I mean, I bet you haven't bought an egg in a while.
Yeah, the eggs from a chicken, like the yolks, are the biggest difference, and they're bright orange and very. The brighter the orange, it indicates the more micronutrients and inside the egg. So they're very healthy as a result.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And you compare it to a store-bought egg, and they kind of look anemic. And it's once you try fresh eggs, it's hard to go back to
so good
store-bought eggs.
I've also noticed that the shell on those kind of, like your chickens' eggs, the shell is so much harder, and it's not nearly as easy to crack the egg. I mean, you have to put a little bit more. They're still delicate, but you have to put in a bit more oomph into it than one of the store-bought eggs.
But chickens are a delight. If anyone's listening to this and ever thought about getting chickens, I highly recommend it. They're so fun. They all have little personalities. They eat your compost and they give you eggs in return. Like, what's not to like?
Best deal ever.
Yeah. It's a win-win. That's one of those symbiotic relationships where I feel like, there's symbiotic relationships in nature. And I feel like humans are also part of nature. And I feel like a chicken and a human have a symbiotic relationship that is pure and natural. And, I'm sure my vegan friends would disagree with me as far as eating the eggs. But I mean, that's my point of view on it, is that it's a symbiotic relationship. Yeah. I protect them from the weasels and the hawks, and they give me eggs in return.
Seems like a fair trade to me. And as we last and final question is, where can we learn more about the work that you're doing? So specifically ChicoBag and To-Go Ware.
Well, you can go to our website, which is ChicoBag, ChicoBag.com. And you can see our To-Go Ware product line there as well.
Excellent.
We also have social media accounts as well that you can link to, from our website. And ultimately, anybody who wants to involve us in anything that they're working on, like, we're happy to collaborate and talk. And people can reach out to me. My email is easy. It's just Andy@ChicoBag. So I invite any kind of collaboration. Like, if anyone is on the same page as us and wants to rally, I'm there.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for your time, first of all, Andy. And I really hope to see you one day dressed as the Bagmonster. Hopefully that's what you do for Halloween.
Yeah, we'll Google Bagmonster and see what you find.
lots of photos of you, I hope.
Well, we have 100 costumes that we loan out to people all over the world, and many people have dressed up like the Bagmonster, so you can see how it's been used. It's been very effective.
Yeah, that's awesome. What a great way to spread awareness and get to dress up as something kind of very scary, actually.
Yeah.
So Andy, thank you again so much for your time. I think the work you're doing with ChicoBags and To-Go Ware is really important. As you say, it's not just about, reducing obviously is very important. It's also about just becoming aware of the problem that we have. And it sounds like you're doing an amazing job with that. So we're all rooting for you, and
thank you.
Best of luck as you continue on with your journey. And again, thank you so much for your time.
And thank you as well.
Thank you very much for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, give us a 5-star rating. And also, please subscribe, whether on your podcast app or on YouTube. And that way you can be the first to know about new episodes. Thank you very much, and talk to you soon.